Hey, what is going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and Brian Scarborough, Fixed Air Moon, here for Spiritual Daddy on highvibe.tv on this August the 29th of 2022. Hope everybody's doing wonderful out there. Make sure that you check the links down below to be part of highvibe.tv, especially now that they are having fun with all the canceling. My Instagram is about to go away right now, and it's just going to be a domino effect everywhere else. So make sure that you're on highvibe.tv or on any of our apps down below and subscribe. 7-day free trial at the same time, too. What is going on, Brian? How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Hope everybody else is doing well, too. It's been another one of those weekends, another one of those weeks. I feel like we're all kind of just like energetically like, come on, something, you know. But then things are showing up too, so it's beautiful in its own right. It's just kind of meh. But today, honestly, it's been a really good day so far. So
yeah, I feel like it was a really good new moon. I feel like it definitely is getting things, just like focusing on the things that really matter and being in the moment and taking things on and not getting lost in the sauce. You know, I feel like especially it's important right now because especially with today's subject of the Saturn Uranus square coming, and you know, we can try and run experiments in our life that are good, and then I think looking at last year's astrology and what's coming up, this is way more intense, the Saturn Uranus square energy, and I think it's important for people to really start to recognize like what experiments in our life, because I think no matter where we're at, we all have to do some sort of like kind of crazy like
something different.
Yeah. And so, like, what is going to be the good stuff? What is going to be the bad stuff here? And I think that we both kind of came to a conclusion with this show that we're both astrologers. And I feel like, you know, having the divine masculine talk is still there, but I just feel like we both have the consensus of wanting to kind of do more of the astrology with it all and pick the stuff instead of just like, I don't know.
The opinion will show up when it shows up, of course, but it's like cool to bring it back to the astrology, and you know, we both enjoy that and do that every day, and I feel like the viewers, you know, are into that too here. So you agree?
And I just think these times are really important for that work of really giving people, you know, different subject matters and using the astrology to say, hey, these things are coming up, or these things are about to happen, or these things are happening, or even these things have happened. How have you dealt with it? You know? Yeah,
it's good preparation because it's just.
I know, the cooling gel, preparation H.
Ooh.
So how do you feel about Saturn square Uranus just anyway? Or maybe you want to let people know if they don't know what it's about, like what it is as a transit. And I'd like to know your opinion about it. Because I, of course, came up with shattered reality.
Right.
What is it for you?
It's a similar vibe. You know, maybe different words. I haven't really thought too much about like labeling it too much more than Saturn square Uranus. And you took a good one with shattered reality.
Thank you.
But it is that, you know, Saturn's the structure of this physical realm. You know, it's kind of everything from the ground up that gets built, the tiers, the hierarchies, the governments, you know. In our own life, it's of course the systems that we all put into our life, what we're going to achieve, go after, where we have blocks, where we've been, you know, kind of programmed in our lives too. So, you know, where the authority comes in is Saturn. And I think we all learn how to kind of find our own authority. And I think that that's one of the positives of a Uranus square is that it can really help liberate us to finding our own unique authority and learning how to take that. Now, I think in terms of like the mundane or the collective astrology, it manifests in really weird ways because we start to see all these things that we thought were the structure, we thought were going to be the long-term plans, the long-term goals, who we thought was the authority. All these things are now in a radical change. So Uranus is liberating with change, as always, and it's also very experimental. You know, it's trying new things. It's different. It's alien energy. So it's definitely this like alien new energy that's coming in, squaring Saturn, shaking up all of these, you know, concrete, if you will, with Saturn, you know, areas of our life. And it comes through with weird sort of experimentations, you know. I mean, the best example that came from the last one that we had in 2020 and into 2021 was, of course, the the sticky pokey. And it's very interesting because you would start to think, like, when you start to see a Pluto finishing up in Capricorn, when you start to see Saturn, which finished up in Capricorn and it's now strong in Aquarius, when you start to see like all these government issues or government, reconfigurations that are going down, the last experiment I wanted to take personally was one that was being pushed by the hierarchy, by the top, from the top down. So I think that's where this is important again, since we're about to relive that, and with a Mars retrograde. We had Mars retrograde in Aries in 2020, and into 2021 a little bit. Square Pluto, and now it's gonna be square Neptune, and that's kind of a theme that's going on here too. So, gosh, it's very interesting to see like what sort of things are going to be pushed on the people to be maybe further confusing. It's a very confusing time with that Mars Neptune square added into the mix of already just there's no solid ground with Uranus, right? And Saturn is supposed to be this kind of solid structure. So here we are. It's all shattering.
It is all shattering. I think you bring up really good points about the authority, because of when you're dealing with Aquarius, it is Saturn Uranus ruled, right? So you have both planets in square.
Right.
And so there's the liberation element of Uranus, who actually is the grandpapa of Saturn. And then you have Saturn that's home there. And I think there's that whole home element because, of course, that's Saturn's grandfather's house, right? So it's like that weird place where Aquarius is weird because Saturn actually banishes his grandfather to take control. And so you get that element in the mythology that's going on. And when there's the square happening, and when Saturn's at its home and Uranus is at its fall in Taurus, there is this like authoritative more element of, a control system, especially if you take 2020 and you think of all the Saturn and Capricorn in its home sign, right? And you got that with Jupiter and you got that with Pluto. There's like that whole element that was coming into these squares right now that we're in, and including here in 2022, of like, holy crap, like there's a bunch of energy trying to just banish out the laws of the universe and just like take control in its own way. And what's crazy is if you look back at the one from last year, which was around right before Christmas, which was crazy. Mm-hmm. So people can actually see what it was. So it was Christmas Eve. We had Saturn here at 11 degrees direct in Aquarius, and then we had Uranus here retrograde at 11:05 and in Taurus. And so this is a big square, and I had called it shattered reality because, one, that's what it feels like. The stuff that we predict in life, Uranus, right, is like the idea of our future and the idea of like where we think we're going and the collective's going, is not going to go that direction. It's going to be totally turned into another direction. Mm-hmm. And especially with Saturn and Uranus beating it out. And even though Saturn's stronger being in Aquarius, there's that Uranus that's unstable Earth, right? It's like creating a fixed sign of Taurus and making it just like a sentinel to me. And so it reminded me of the scene in The Matrix, the first one, mm-hmm. when Thomas Anderson, before he knows he's really Neo, and when he gets out of the Matrix, is too afraid to take the scaffolding out, and then the agents take him, and then he flips him off, and then what does he do? He can't talk, and then they put that freaking sentinel in his belly button, if you don't remember, in his navel.
Oh, I remember.
And so that's, I didn't say that, and then I did a special on shattered reality, right? That I was warning people like the rule breaker is the enlightened one right now, because the herding is so crazy and the bugging that would be going on.
Mm-hmm. That's like the solid ground, is if you're doing what the opposite of what you're told.
I know, that's what's kind of crazy about it. But it was also at a time where the nodes were about to shift, which we're in now. So there wasn't, especially in December, right, of 2021, we were just done with the eclipses, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, this one was like dead exact, and this one was the first one, and this one's pretty much like the most solid one. But what we're coming into is way crazier, especially because, Jupiter had not entered into Pisces yet with Neptune. It was still with Saturn, and we were still dealing with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of December 21st, 2020. So, there was people still believing the stuff from a year prior, which is actually when the Sticky Pokey came out, was December of 2020.
Right.
And then there was that whole like, it's getting so bad now if you don't do this, like, you know, and this is when the idea of the passports were full blown. Like,
I know,
people
everybody
were living
was
them.
tripping. Yeah.
Everybody's living by passports.
Some people did. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, you got to have a vaccine passport in order to fucking get through life. And it's like, that's not natural, especially all the video reels of whether you include Joe Biden or whether you include Jen Psaki, even Fauci himself. Like, oh, that's impossible. We would never do that. Yeah.
Turns out everything they say is just constantly a lie.
So that's a shattered reality right there, right? Like, they tell it to your face.
That's a huge part of the shattered reality. Is we're not, I mean, I feel like we have been lied to for a very long time, but we're not used to it being so blatant. Right. And so obvious.
And that's, I think, kind of scary, though, is that, like, the idea, oh, there'll never be a passport for fucking a shot. Just to go into a store, just to go into a...
It made that whole barcode thing, you know, really real, which is very, you know, Aquarian in its own right. The dark side of Aquarius.
Yeah, and remember, this is the Christmas time where Joe Biden said it's going to be a dark winter and it's going to be a Christmas of death for the unvaccinated. I know. And now all the numbers are coming back that it wasn't that, and that it's crazy how much in just the last month has been a shattered reality again for everybody who fell for the spell. But my fear is the next one that's happening, which we're about to happen here. So if we take a look here, now there's, of course, a lot of different charts I could run. But when I'm looking at the Saturn-Uranus square that's going to be here on September 30th, which we're about to enter September, my fear is that it's so extreme with Saturn retrograde stationing, Uranus in retrograde, but we've got it with a node this time, right? And then we're coming into the eclipse season, not leaving it. And then Jupiter retrograde is going to be opposing Venus in its home sign. And then I think the craziest part is Mercury retrograde is going to be nearing its end, right? October 1st, October 2nd is when it comes out. And it's going to be opposing Neptune. And then Jupiter's on its way back to meet with Neptune, where that's the ultimate of propaganda. 1856 was the last time I had Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. And it was extreme propaganda then, like of the craziest sort. And then if you think of this whole year, which my biggest prediction was that you would just start to see a bunch of people die and them not explain anything. I literally said that like a million times.
They even created a thing for it.
Yeah.
Sad.
And then even today, all the data came out for the Scottish Parliament about like they're investigating it. Now everybody's starting to go, what the fuck? Like, why are so many people dying in their sleep? Why are so many? And like, that's the
middle-aged.
Yeah, middle-aged.
Young middle-aged.
Young middle-aged. And that there's no symptoms. Just dying in your sleep.
Done.
Right? And I think it could even be bigger than what we think, right? Like, that's the other part of the shadow reality.
Yeah, there's going to be more pieces to it.
There's going to be so many more shattered shards of glass.
Like, Pluto just finishing in Capricorn is about to uncover the craziest shit within the governments, within the plans, within the big overarching control systems. It's crazy. And then Mars retrograding in Gemini, the sign of information. It is going to be in that chart, of course, square Neptune also.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a loaded chart. It's just
and
loaded.
And it's in shadow, and Mars is not going to be fast at all at that moment.
Oh, it's
right?
creeping.
It's going to be doing like 20 minutes a day. It's not even doing a degree, not even close to it. Doesn't do ever a degree, but it's doing half the speed.
Yeah, a little less than half.
And it's about to go out of bounds, right? There's that whole out of bounds area that it's a very concerning moment for people who are going to be, and look at Mercury retrograde is going to be starting to station in its retro to almost the direct. That's going to be the most intense part of the Mercury retrograde. Like, a lot of people are, saying, oh, this pre-shadow and all that. It's like, no. That's
stationing opposite Neptune with a Mars. I mean, that's the most confusing shit ever.
And even Mercury opposing Jupiter through this. If you think about the hype and the media and the information that's going to be coming out, this is going to be the time where you do not believe what you see at all.
You'll get twisted if you attach to a belief like this is my identity. It's going back to like when the South Node was in Sag. Like people attach to their identity to a belief that they were told. Don't go back to that. It's not time to go into any belief told to you and say, this is me, this is who I am, this is my story. This is your story. Anybody that's telling you what story or path or thing to believe or truth, be worried. Like be skeptical. Some people are going to have your back, but don't just dive into anything without doing your own, spiritual checkup on it.
Well, because I think the craziest of this whole square is going to be that Jupiter in the middle. That's the midpoint of the square. So this is at a 45 degree from both Saturn and Uranus exact. So we're in semi-squares to Jupiter.
A lot of tension.
And so that's a lot of tension, especially about even the belief that an individual can make it through something, right? Like the courage to make it through things.
Or even to believe in oneself, because we're so confused.
Correct. That the mob woke world, right, is definitely there. The North Node, Uranus and Taurus, and people really starting to have different, values. And then you have Neptune, of course, that's opposite Mercury, and they're both in their home signs, both retrograde. It's going to be the Wild West all over again. But they are, I feel, going to start placing outside blame and having people believe the blame as if, I know this might sound crazy, but that like this whole UFO like thing that's been coming out, right? Or something like that. Like think about it. If you were this bad, right? Like we just saw Fauci resign. We talked about him, right? We're seeing Boris Johnson resigned, and then there's all this new stuff about how the lockdowns are the worst thing, or now how, of course, the shot fucking is doing so bad for people that it's like, where are you going to place the blame on? Something that we've never seen before, right? Like the aliens really are here, and they took us over, and they took over these people. Blame it on them. Or maybe they're going to blame it on China, or maybe they're going to blame it on maybe even Ukraine. It might even be that crazy, or Russia.
There's going to be zero accountability.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that's the thing is it's weird because it is probably September is the hardest month for the rest of the year, just in the fact that this is happening, and trying to understand that, we are coming into a really heavy eclipse season that is going to be difficult too. But I think that this is where it's like people have to start being prepared that this world's about to, if it's the second hit and this one's way more intense.
And it's just so long. Like it's not exact, but it's just, that almost amplifies it. It's within like 30 minutes.
It's exact. It's half a degree.
It's close.
It's the same degree number at least.
And they're really going to sit with each other, because Saturn's going to station at 18.
Yeah, they're both doing.
And Uranus is still stationed. Uranus ain't going to move for a minute.
No, this is the most non-movement of the year astrologically. Exactly. And the fact that and the node's going to be there with it.
Yeah.
And the fact that Pluto's going to be dead stopped. And the fact that Saturn's dead stopped, and the fact that Jupiter's, not dead stopped, but it's starting to slow down. It's reached its peak as far as in the retrograde goes about. And it's sitting at the 45 degree angle. And we've been having horrible Jupiter transits where this is not giving any love to Jupiter at all.
Jupiter hasn't gotten love since like 2017.
No.
2018? So I don't know. It's been a long time.
I think a lot of this is where you have to, as a person, really right now, like if we're going to talk about what experiments are going to work in your life, or the better way would be like, how do you break away from having to go through this? I think good experiments right now are going to be things that are really things that feel like that you're not going to get caught under the glass ceiling that's going to fall. Because this is the second hit. So it's almost like it broke the glass and a bunch came out. But this is the one where the whole glass ceiling falls,
Right. It's like if you were in a boxing match and it was round one, you just got knocked down in the first round and you're getting back up for round two. And you're like, I cannot hit the mat again or it might be lights out. So it's like, this is a really important time to make the right decision, to try the right things. Because we all have to try something. It's just, I feel like the stakes are really high, like exponentially high if you do the thing that isn't right. which is going to be what you're told to do. It's actually pretty simple, in my opinion.
Well, and I mean, we're dealing with Taurus, we're dealing with Aquarius, so we are going to deal with, of course, financial aspects. We're going to be dealing with, of course, how this global world, and again, things about the trade, things about like food shortages, stuff like that. Like that stuff's coming up no matter what. But I think the stock market, things like that, like currency, the dollar itself.
Right. I think that's a big deal.
Like there's going to be, but this is where you want to band together with people that didn't fall for the first shatter.
Yeah.
And like you almost want to like start forming, like people need to also remember, like this could be a massive solar flare that comes and takes out communication.
Moment, right.
Yeah. Like this is where it's that shattered of a reality. Like you want to start doing the old school, like paper and pen. You don't have a CB radio? They're cheap.
Might want to remember, the people close to you, remember their numbers. A lot of times we don't remember numbers.
Well, that's why I'm saying
days,
CB radio, because there's be no phones unless you have a hardwired phone line, but those could go out too. That you want to have a battery operated CB radio where you're like, hey, we'll be on station like 11 or 12 or 15, and you want to have even just like walkie talkies.
Yeah.
Like if you're close and you live close to people, but you want to have everybody like in your group starting to be like, yo, this is where this is at. If it's money, right? It's like, how about you get all the beans? I get all the, different kind of water filtration things. Like,
yeah, that's like real Uranus and Taurus shit. Like coming together with actual physical resources, because we're going to need each other. That's what I've been saying for a while now, is people are the most valuable asset. It's not necessarily the physical things that were of value that we thought. Like that's all getting redefined. It's going to be people. People are valuable. And that's how we're going to help each other. Certain people can build. Certain people can farm. Certain people can watch the kids while people farm and build. There's just going to be different layers of society likely that we're coming into. We don't know yet, but think about if, we did lose access to all the power sources that's a game changer.
Well, and when that happens, people think that the government's going to step in and be able to take care of everybody. They're not.
No.
So there's going to be nobody there. That's kind of the lesson of Saturn square Uranus too, is like the understanding of like hard stuff, Saturn, that's here to liberate you, but it's not going to come easy, and you have to know how to independently connect your own dots without the instruction manual that you're used to the system, right? Mm-hmm. Like the idea of what has always been the system, or it's always worked a certain way. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's, people are saying telepathy, but but as somebody in the military and stuff, like there's certain times where if you need to leave, right? If there's riots that start happening, where people are just breaking into homes to get food, or like because they know the government's gone, like I wouldn't be surprised to see like, what happened? Is Biden the president still? And like it's going to get so confusing.
It won't matter.
It won't matter. But that's why it's like you can't just sit and wait. That's one of the things. Like everybody's here at this time. You give this amount of, and if you don't show up, then you go. That's the hard part too. Mm-hmm. So that's where Cancer is not like the best sign. Like, oh, well, let's wait for them another 3 hours. And then they don't show. And then that's when, oh my God, they're fucking right here, and you're done.
Yeah.
Like people have to really start to realize, like, you already saw all the lies, and you already saw all that. They lied to your face. And with Jupiter and Neptune coming closer, propaganda, like this is also where I wouldn't even be, this might sound crazy, but even invasions into countries that you wouldn't think, anything that you think that won't happen. Oh, that's where you start putting that on the list of it can happen.
Possibilities. Yeah.
Where I'm almost hoping that people believe the worst can happen, so the worst doesn't happen.
Right.
That's
crazy.
Like a
good thing we're putting out there, like, power outage, because that would suck. I mean, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I don't think we know, but it's like the more people that think about it, you're right. Like that's the thing that won't happen. That's how Uranus works. It's going to be the last thing that the collective thought of in the collective consciousness. So,
well, and like I have a question for you. Like, why? Like I'm being my whole Instagram's starting to be really, extremely censored, right? Like they took my lives away, and then now they took me from tagging people and it's like at the weirdest moment. Like, why didn't they do that through me saying all this shit fucking for 2 years.
That's like
that's how you know there's something fucking
right.
They want to control the narrative.
And then cracking down on Dr. Drew, like you showed me. And he's, just a doctor having conversations. It's crazy that doctors can't even have conversations right now. So it's kind of going back to that shadow ban, because I was in it too for a while. Like, you can't say anything. But now there's so much information out there that it's absurd to shadow ban people for whatever reason. It doesn't matter what the reason is, because it's just throwing out facts that have been researched and have had the work done. It's not a conspiracy any longer. That's the crazy part. So yeah, it makes you wonder. They just don't want they want to keep people not paying attention. So they're doing their best to people get it. People are watching, paying attention, and they don't want that, obviously. So the more they can say, hey, look over here, which is going to be that Mars-Neptune square that we're going through, and with the Mercury retrograde that's going to go through Neptune, like, that's going to be the illusion. Like, they're going to say, look over here, keep everybody's head in the fog so that the next thing can slip through without people paying attention, which could just be the truth about how, like, what's really going to go down, overall with what's already happened. Or it's going to be another implementation of the next stage of whatever that plan was.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's a bunch of things compressing at once. Like, something causes a structure of the government to not be able to, maybe do money or something like that. And then all the stuff that's already been coming out that shows that the shot itself is caught already today. And, I have no problem showing this because it's actually just came out. The paper just came out today and everybody's sharing it. That is willing to still see things without being lost into, because there is this mass psychosis going on, which I think that's the kind of crazy part is what happens when the mass psychosis people, this shatters it so much to finally get through. And then they literally go to a psychosis.
It's very possible.
Right? Like a full-blown psychosis. Like, so if you look, and Dr. Drew just posted it up here. And so he's talking about his ban, but then also he put up today, right here from Vinay Prasad, that it's now undeniable vaccine can cause more myocarditis in men under 40 than COVID-19. Just out, Patriot Circle 2022. I've said repeatedly it should be banned. Here's the graph of the myocarditis and the circulation paper, that it's above. And they didn't report the first and second doses after COVID. It's pretty crazy in that paper. And it's actually kind of scary that that's the times we're living in right now, is every little corner is coming out with that, right? So if you look at the ADH journal, after sequel sentinel doses of COVID-19 vaccine and SARS infection by age and sex. So this just came out in circulation, and it is peer reviewed, and look at the dates, right? December 1st through December 15th, 2021, when the shattered reality was hitting the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And,
it's unfortunate. But this is why, as we're coming back around to this again, we cannot make the same mistakes and fall for it.
Yeah, and it's especially for people who the risk of it is higher after you've been infected. But what's crazy is then they try and tell you right now in the world, everybody's been infected. They don't even know, right? But they knew this, and they could have done safety data, and they could have done all this stuff. But that's where it's really, really fucked up, right? We're at a place now where it's especially this show, we're talking about the divine masculine, fucking, if you're a man, especially the young boys, right? That's what's crazy. The ones that are 18 to 24, it's horrible for them. But boys 16 to 24 are going to face the worst balance. Public health, CDC, and FDA failed these boys by ignoring safety signal. Authors needs more bins. The goal was to, get everybody shot up safely. That means you have to act on safety, and they didn't. So think of all those young men. I mean, those were the ages where I fucking thrived, about a man being a man, military, fucking doing everything to be a man, like, you know, and like now, like myocarditis is not like a, oh, it'll be healed quick,
No,
or
it's
it'll
5
be
years.
healed. I know it's 5 years, and then usually you die.
If that.
Yeah, and then usually you die after that.
I know. It's
So
a very
it's crazy.
slow deterioration.
And to me, it's kind of crazy, you know, and I mean, I'm not afraid to say this, but it's like, you know, if I was the parent to this, I mean, how are you going to live your life? Knowing that you encouraged it, or knowing that you said, hey, don't come to Christmas unless you have that, or you can't go see grandma unless you have that. Like, what a fucking spell on people to fall for that. Like, that's a karma. I don't even know what that would feel like.
That's how you break people.
Right? So it's like, again, where's, you know, people speaking up in the world about this shit? That's why my Instagram's about to be banned. There's only like, it's so sad how small amount of people are talking about it, and how many fucking fucktards are out there trying to say it's not true, when it's like, no, the data's fucking everywhere.
It's that belief, that attachment to that belief and that story. I don't know. Some people built their whole personality around it these days. It's crazy.
But I think that what we're about to see next is, if we're going to do a good experiment in our life, it's like things that feel that, you know, they might seem a little on the edge or crazy, or taking us to a place that feels like, I don't know what the result's going to be, but at least it feels like it's from a place of value, and a place that's going to connect your life into a better future and make yourself feel better. And it doesn't have some sort of like wild kind of like outer world, like you're not doing it because like some outside authority is telling you to do it.
No, basically, like, if society, whatever like normal society looks at you funny for doing right now, you're probably doing something right.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny, because it's really not normal.
No, it's not. But you know what I mean? Like the
Like people-
consensus,
but-
kind of what the
Yeah.
do this, you know, sort of thing.
That's what's kind of scary, though, is that the normal has become the fringe, and the fringe is normal.
That's exactly true.
And yeah, I think that we're at a spot where it's like, you know, oh, like I don't even really know where to I mean, I think the UFO thing and why they came out with what they're doing in the government about it and so forth, like is kind of scary, because we're at a place to where it's like they are ready to, whether it's install Project Bluebeam or any of these like weird alien things, to kind of like, that's the reason why, that's the blame. I mean, you already saw they blame Russia right now, and then all that's coming out. Where'd the money go? Where'd the weapons go? Who's winning the war? 90% of Ukrainian soldiers have been in bunkers for the last 6 months. Too afraid to come out because there's no commanders, there's nobody around. Like
Zelensky's off taking photos for magazines.
Yeah, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. I say it more, of course, on full disclosure, but I'll just say it here. I believe 100% Zelensky works for Putin, and I think that this has been the biggest KGB. It's like the fact that Russia is asking China to rebuild their country. I'm like, here, Zelensky just calls up the phone. We got another fucking, all these people are so dumb. We got their Bitcoin. We got their fucking Ethereum. We got their fucking, the governments to give us billions. We got their weapons. Like, where do you want me to put it, bro?
I got a spot. Yeah. Like, buy that nuclear plant. We'll just say that it fucking started radiating all crazy. Nobody will touch it.
Nobody will fucking go around there. Okay, yeah, all right. I got the trucks there.
It's
and
something like that for sure.
It's something like that for sure. It's like, that's what's crazy.
There's so much we don't see. There's so much collusion behind the scenes between countries that we probably think are against each other, but they're actually more or less against probably the United States. I do feel like the United States is probably public enemy number one, because we're a little bit more rebellious. We have the freedom, and I don't necessarily think I'm talking about the government either. I think we have some people in our government that are in cahoots with whatever that collusion is.
Right.
But on the people, because we are the most free people.
Right. And we have
they don't
weapons.
like that. And we have weapons, like,
right.
You know, it's the citizens, like the people, you and me, that are probably public enemy number one in the grand scheme of things, despite them thinking that, no, Russia's public enemy number one, China's public enemy number one. No, it's a collusion against us.
It is a collusion, and I feel that if you think about America too, right? Like, we're the 1% nation of all the nations of wealth and so forth, right? So even though people in America go, I can't believe the 1%, they have all the money. It's like, no, you have to realize as an American, your 99% being an American is the 1% of the world. So you have all these countries and all these people around the world that are like, fuck the 1%. You have to look at it like that, you know? It's more than, and people here are just like, gosh, you know, like my fucking order didn't come in from Amazon today.
That was me this weekend.
You know? I know, and like
I let it go, but
we've all been there. But like, we have to realize that most people are not going through that everywhere around the world. That is not a
no.
That is not a normal thing. That is a 1% thing.
1% first world privilege.
Yeah, like, geez, my acai bowl didn't have enough banana on it.
I know.
Like, I can't believe it.
They didn't give me extra agave.
I know, like, geez,
it's bullshit. I'm pissed.
Know? Like,
yeah, there's a lot more important things going on than that little stuff.
And that's where, you know, you have to look at Pluto return for America in the middle of all this.
I know. And the Mars return with a retrograde. There's just...
It's definitely not something to be like, oh, nothing's bad's going to happen or nothing's going to happen. Like, this is where it's all going to... It reminds me of just like when... I don't know. You know, when you as a guy, like, we take wires and we'll just, like, you know, jimmy rig it. This is where the jimmy rig just comes apart.
This is where you have to know how to fucking jimmy rig life.
Yeah, that's true too.
Like the last one came apart, and you better know how to jimmy rig something else back up.
It's true.
Like, and you can't get it from Amazon. You know, so you're gonna have to be creative in your own way of doing things, and that's where people are going to help so much, because we have such a creative collective that can do so much together that, like, you don't have to trip if you can work with people. If you're someone out there that's just hating on everybody, judging everybody, you're not going to do well.
No.
But the people that can, like, see people for a human and that we can do this, like, we're all going to make it work. We all, you know, that's what we're here to do.
No, I agree with you, and I think that you bring up really good points, because, you know, we're kind of at a really intense. Here, I'm going to open up this article. But we're at a really intense place where we're at that place where we're going to have to find the people who really are not lost in the sauce, because at some point you can't just keep trying to help people that are in the middle under the glass ceiling that's going to fall. You're going to die yourself, you know, from it all. And that's kind of been the warning signs from the universe. I mean, like, I don't know how many freaking warnings there's been, but it's like, it's so crazy how many warnings there's been that it's like at this point, it's hard. It's hard. Like, I feel like you have to, it's also, you know, why people are feeling this new earth or this new world or this new frequency energy, because Uranus is frequencies and Saturn is the old frequency. And there's this, you know, battle between staying in the old frequency and allowing yourself to go to the new. And it's hard because you have to value the new frequency enough and not be afraid of what you're leaving behind. That's hard with Saturn in Aquarius, is learning, like, you actually will do good with leaving something that's not moving forward.
That's the hard part of having Jupiter there right in the middle too.
Right.
Because we all had these ideals, these beliefs of, like, what the future was going to be, the Jetsons, whatever you want to look at it as, you know, whatever you thought it was going to be, you know, we have to get out of that. Like, that's where Saturn in Aquarius can help us out, because it can give us the authority within ourselves to detach and to let go and to not be so, this is the belief of where I need to go. This is where my future is going. Because what if it's not? You know, what if you had that 10-year plan that you thought for sure you were going to hit, and then everything changed? Can you let go of that and pick up and start a new future? Can you identify with new beliefs? Like, that's where...
I mean, you're a Capricorn.
Right.
I mean, I think you should tell people, like, did your 10-year plan work as a Capricorn?
No.
When Pluto came on your sun as a Capricorn?
Nothing I ever thought. No, absolutely not. No, I never thought I'd be sitting here. I never thought I would find astrology before that. Like, I didn't have any beliefs. I was very much atheist. No faith. Pluto straight almost killed me and was like,
I don't think you've told the story on this show.
I don't think I have. So I was driving to work, and
what year was this?
This was in 2015. It was Pluto on my Neptune Sun conjunction. And Neptune rules my 12th, Sun rules my 5th, in my 10th. So it was very like interesting that I was going to my career at that time. And I was going probably 88, mobbing. I was in a rental truck. And thank God, because the work truck I had, had full fuel cells. It was in the shop. That would have been it was a big F-250. That would have fucking been a ride if I was in that when this happened. But I was in a Nissan Frontier. It saved my life. Some car, I'm just cruising, listening to music, podcast, whatever it was, and a car hits me from behind out of nowhere. Didn't see it coming, just heard it, and then the next thing you know, I was sideways, rolled however many times, 4 or 5 times across all the lanes, hit a semi-truck, spun around, rolled again, but then stopped on the shoulder, on the wheels. And I remember just like holding onto the steering wheel, like, that was the first time in my life I felt complete no control of life.
Right.
Like just, well, I can't do a damn thing about this. Like here I am rolling across the highway going 80 miles an hour. So I just kind of like, that was like my first surrender moment. I remember rolling and things kind of slowed down. I don't know if you've ever been in a car accident.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
It's weird. Like things slowed down and it felt like a lifetime, but of course it was, whatever, 15 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. I don't know how long it was. But a lot of thoughts went through my head and I'm either going to stop, it'll stop, or I'll go somewhere. And I just kind of surrendered, but just sat there. And eventually it did stop. And I remember opening my eyes. I did open them when I was rolling. It's a trip seeing sparks and glass and metal flying around. But nonetheless, I kind of stopped, opened my eyes. I was like, the first thing I thought was is someone going to hit me from behind? Like, I don't know. Do people realize what just happened? Where am I? Where am I on the road? Who knows? Nobody hit me after 2 seconds. So then I pat myself down. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm all here. I'm alive. My body's intact. I'm okay. I was literally fine. I had some scratches on my shin from the pedals. And I had a little separated shoulder, but surprisingly fine. Didn't even know about the shoulder. I had so much adrenaline. Couldn't get out of my door, so I jumped over to the passenger side and climbed out. And the semi-truck that I hit, that dude came running over. He was the first one there. And he looked like he saw a ghost when I jumped out of the truck. He could not believe anybody got out of the vehicle after what he saw. And I was like, yeah. He's like, is there anybody else in there? No, just me. And that moment after that, I just looked up at the sky and I felt for the first time in my life like I had angels, protection. I was in awe that I was still breathing. So it changed my whole direction in life, because from that moment on, it was kind of gradual, but it wasn't just boom there and then, oh, I'm going to do astrology or I'm going to be, spiritual. It was just that led to one sequence after another where, it started extraterrestrial, but it was interdimensional things started happening. I saw a UFO shortly after that, started meditating and talking to aliens. It was just that was the catalyst, the transformation moment. And that's where Pluto is going to, for all of us in the collective, go through and transform our structures and our plans. Just when you think you're going somewhere, I was going to my career, my job, you'll just end up going a completely different direction, rolling around and not knowing where you are, and then coming back out and having to sort of reconfigure what all that was. And it won't happen right away, but things will start making more and more sense about what the future will look like and what the plans moving forward will be. But there's still this level where I think you got to accept that the plans can change at any moment. That's the new frequency. There's no more, right? Because that's where the cross of planning is, the human design cross that we're getting out of. There is no more planning per se. You're here. It's just, what are you doing today that's important? And everything else, and I know people love to plan. I want to have kids. I want to do this. I'm going to save up for this. It's great.
But especially with the Saturn Uranus square right now.
But don't get upset if it doesn't work out.
It's about saying, fuck the plan, let's go. But without it being kind of how they did the shot. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's the barrier, is is this unnatural?
That is the barrier. Because
Like-
Uranus and Taurus is saying that if you're going to experiment and liberate yourself, Taurus is very natural.
Yes. So very interesting thing that Whitley just posted. This is the guy who literally has wrote the book on UFOs and especially extraterrestrial life. He just posted this 44 minutes ago. The U.S. Congress has admitted, I bet indirectly, that some of the UAP are not of human origin. So this is about the investigation about the UFOs, but they're calling it, of course, unmanned aircraft, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. And directive included in the amendment of the Intelligence Authorization Act of the fiscal year 2023. The amendment also states that the presence of these unidentified phenomena is a threat to the country's national security and is expanding exponentially. So he says the links in his bio, an unknown country here. And it's like, right? So it's like on this story right here, this is where they are literally going to start to use that. So under the section titled Modification of Requirement for Office to Address Unidentified Airspace Undersea Phenomena, that's is the undersea phenomena that they're coming out of the ocean too, which is very interesting with Jupiter, Neptune, right?
Yeah, they've been trying to disclose that, which, I mean, if they are using craft that is of a propulsion of that nature, it wouldn't matter if they were in the water, in air, outer space. They're going to move through it.
Well, they're saying, and like across domain transmedium threats. Now, to me, as a spiritual person, as an astrologer, that's transmedium, right? Like we think of mediumship, right? Mm-hmm. And crossing to other sides, right? Crossing over into other realms. Across domain transmedium threats to United States national security, whose presence is expanding exponentially. The report expresses that the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence is disappointed with the slow pace of the Department of Defense-led efforts to establish the office to address those threats and to replace the former UAP task force as directed in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2022. But it also states that the new office has failed to address many of the structural issues hindering the progress. To that, the committee is directing the Pentagon to rename the Aerial Object Identification and Management Synchronization Management Group, formerly known as the UIAP Task Force, and temporarily rename the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office in July as the Unidentified Airspace Undersea Phenomena Joint Program Office. The investigative office's new name appears to acknowledge the observed ability of a number of UAP to travel comfortably in both water and air, making their transmedium transition with no apparent hindrance.
I mean, it's the perfect plan if you think about it with these transits and Saturn, Uranus squares. Like, throw up a fake UAP situation, scare people,
well, I don't
have
even
a
think
national
it's fake.
security
I think
threat.
that this has been going on, but they're going to take things that actually might be more positive.
But they're going to use it for control.
Correct.
I mean, it's not going to be just like, oh, be scared of these things. They're going to lay down guidelines like we just saw with COVID. They're going to lay down all these different rules. They're going to try and, the next thing to get everybody in their house, in their, concrete room with VR, if that's even the plan. Like, it's either that or climate. Like, there's something that's going to be pushed for control. And that's a great excuse because that'll freak people out. People be scared to death if they actually saw those things in the sky.
Right. Like, curiously, the entry states that there must be a clear distinction between a UAP known to be man-made and true unknown unknowns, with the report of those positively identified to be of human origin passed on the appropriate agencies and should not be considered under the definition as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena. So they're trying to get very specific now, but I think that's where it's been weird. Because, imagine that the UFO office identifies a highly advanced drone flying in sensitive airspace under the draft legislation, regardless of the drone's origin, be it Chinese, Russian, or otherwise. The UFO office must immediately stop investigating and hand the case over to another government entity. Which, whenever you're dealing with nukes, these are where these things show up the most, right? Especially if you think of the UFO phenomena that we've been having has been since Roswell. After we dropped the bomb, both bombs in Japan, and we started testing atomic bombs, and then we moved to hydrogen bombs, is when all the UFOs started showing up.
Right.
So whatever's been going on in Russia, Ukraine, and whatever they're doing out there.
Well, that's the crazy thing too, is, I've seen a lot of things too on that technology we've had for a long time. And, often if we think we see a UFO, it's actually manned. It's someone operating it. And
I do
think UFOs and aliens exist, but I think they come into a singularity, like into your consciousness, for you to see it for that moment, for whatever it is, for the people, but it's different. I think there's different situations with that kind of craft. My own opinion on the matter.
Well, my opinion on the craft thing, and we'll come back to this article in a second. I think it's fucking badass though that Whitley just released this.
Yeah,
And I had dinner with them, like 2 months ago, Jimmy Church's house. I got to say that, think about that UFOs show up after atom bombs go off. And then the more that you see the hydrogen bomb that we started to create before nuclear, right? So there's steps in the process, right? The more UFOs people are seeing, the more UFOs are being around these crazy places, right? To me, that is what I think they're really trying to distort from the public, is that there's been these beings and there's been these other entities the whole time.
The whole time. I agree.
And that they show up when it's like, whoa, you guys are motherfucking going way too far in some weird shit here. This is not what we do out in the universe. We don't do this shit, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that, think of the shot, the shot's a nuclear bomb going off in people.
That's
right? So you know what I mean? So it's like, no wonder it's starting to, like, they know. And so they're going to take what I believe, this is my own belief, and I might be wrong, but I truly believe that they're good beings out there. I don't believe they're bad. I think that they're going to throw and try and make people believe they're bad, and they're going to try and throw it all on them. And they're trying, because it's all fucking, the sewage has gotten so backed up that the whole trailer park now is just, all the fucking sewage is coming out. And they have a hose out there and they're trying to make it not smell bad, and it's starting to smell really fucking bad. You know what I mean? Like fucking really bad. And so the last minute, you're just going to try and fucking, throw a bunch of fucking weird fucking like RV blue fucking chemical on people's eyes and tell them that it came from that fucking alien ship up there. But you didn't see that we were the ones pumping all the shit everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of the bad ones have been among us here the whole time.
Right.
The Lizzies, if you will. I think a lot of the other ones that come through are much more divine, in a more helpful, way with the light. We are the light down here. The dark is down here too, obviously, but God, I don't know. We are going to get splashed with something, though, to get us, to try and purify us, like whatever it ends up being.
So the interesting part to this is, this implies that members of the Senate Intelligence Committee believe on a unanimous bipartisan basis that some UFOs have non-human origins. After all, why would Congress establish and task a powerful new office with investigating non-man-made UFOs if such objects do not exist?
100%.
Right? So this guy, Von Rennenkampf, writes that committee members and other members of Congress and the Senate may have been briefed on encounters with objects that are clearly not human in origin. He includes examples such as former Director of National Intelligence John Radcliffe's public statement that UFOs exhibit technologies that we don't have and that we are not capable of defending against. So make no mistake, no branch, right? So it's like, there's also the news source from Vice on there. But also, this has been Whitley's wheelhouse for 40 plus years. And, they've made movies off his books and so forth. And when I talk to him, it's all about like how he's connected with these beings, like, right? So it's and they're all of a love origin and a positive origin. And I think it's hard if you even take the religions of today, like they use the religious institutions to make people feel like, that's bad, right? Like when we think of natural origin, like there is things in the universe, like if you go under the sea especially, That's all natural, right? Like everybody's all about green earth and go in the sea. But if I guarantee you, if I drop some chick who's super green earth and put her at the bottom of the Mariana Trench and the weird fucking things are finding there that crawl all over her body, she's gonna be like, that's fucking alien, that's not natural, get me out of there, get me back home. I wanna go in my shower.
Yeah.
Right? So like, but what's not is whatever there is, like there is some other dark force that's embedding itself here that Dylan and I talked about.
Yeah, and I think that dark force is going to point the finger, if we're having that, like, I think it makes a lot of sense to point the finger at the benevolent ones.
Yeah.
That might be showing up.
But it's so Saturn, Uranus.
And with all the war stuff that's coming, who's to say that if a nuke, the way even technology is, if a nuke or some crazy bomb were to come down, they wouldn't make it look like it came from the good, you know, or just from that angle when they're actually good, but it's actually, you know, sort of another trap. There's so many possibilities, you know.
Well, I know. Well, and I think, you know, like just to kind of go back to the Roswell thing, right? Which would be interesting astrologically to kind of maybe look at, especially with Pluto. Maybe you want to look up the incident. Of course, it's just 1947 on July 8th. That's when it came out in the newspaper. So, you know, they're saying that date,
July 7th?
July 8th.
July 8th, 1947.
That's when it came out. But we can kind of like look back and forth. But, you know, right? So it's like in the Roswell, the RAAF, like that Air Force captures flying saucer and ranch in Roswell region, right? And it's kind of interesting because if you think of technology, right? Like we were still using tubes in our radios, right? Like television was not really a thing yet. Right?
No.
Right? So the idea that like it's almost like when they say captured, that like to me that's an interesting like thing, like right? Like
but
it's almost like
say that
it's like
Hitler,
they jacked it.
That Hitler was in contact with reptilians during that time and that he made deals with them and they had the technology. And that was a big part of the United States getting von Braun over here because he had the technology. So everybody wanted it.
Right? And it's like the more you know, and like even if it's kind of weird about the desert stuff too, right? Like and UFOs, and especially even if you understand the reptilian like agenda stuff that, you know, Middle East in the desert or out in the desert of New Mexico, right? Like, you know, there is kind of that weird like, They're saying, I guess, on Saturday night, July 5th, the rancher Mac Brazel made a trip from his remote ranch to town. The ranch had no phone, no radio. The Roswell incident occurred amid the flying saucer craze of 1947. On June 26, media nationwide had reported civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold's story of seeing what became known as flying saucers. So it's basically that June 26th to like July 8th. Like there's somewhere in there. I guess on Sunday, July 6th, Brazel dug out the debris, and on Monday, July 7th, he took it to the sheriff's office. So it's like kind of interesting that happened because I feel like, you know, if I take people for a second back and we do 1947 and we do like, that's 1847. We do 1947, we do like atomic testing, bomb testing. We have to remember this is 2 years after World War II, right? Operation Crossroads, right? This is where we start throwing mushroom-shaped clouds less than a year, right? After the war, so less than a year before the Roswell incident, and here's what we're doing, right? And then if you think of how NATO and all that is trying to, you know, say all this crazy stuff. Look at a third deepwater test named Charlie was planned for 1947, but was canceled primarily because of the United States Navy inability to decontaminate the target ships, or the fact that the aliens fucking said, motherfuckers, you do this, you're done. Think about that. Like, oh, it was canceled primarily?
I've heard that the higher powers of like in Earth and Gaia have legitimately said, one more nuke and you guys are done here.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels that way. And we're at the height. I mean, like if you just take the news, right? And it's like, you know, like nuclear fears 2022, right? It's all everywhere. It's like, you know, like it's like in the news. Ukraine launches counteroffensive, right?
New
like
York
Ukraine
put out a
announces
fucking
push,
commercial.
Ukraine, right? Like Russia bombs nuclear disarmament. Like everything is like about this atomic energy. You're right, like, and it's so Uranian, right? But with
Very.
Saturn squaring there is that whole like, is this really going to be good for people in general? Like
Right.
Saturn's almost like looking after experiments that are bad, being like, you're gonna go experiment in unnatural ways. No.
You'll pay dearly.
Like here, like would Putin dare to use nuclear weapons managing, right? Like, so the fact that there's this, when that's the inverse is like, no, it's more like NATO, because it was just recently that NATO got a new commander, right? So this just happened August of this month. Today, U.S. Army General Daryl A. Williams assumed command of NATO. So a U.S. Army general is now in charge of NATO, welcomes a new commander. So there is a massive spiritual war, but also a physical war. But it's more like, do you really think that, you know, the Russia-Ukraine thing is going to cause it? No, it's going to be NATO and America that's going to do the crazy fucking shit. And they're obviously really mounted up on this UFO stuff in the background. And I feel like this is where it's going to go. I don't know if you want to share your chart.
Oh, yeah, I have July 7th, 47 up here. Maybe I can move it hours to get it up at the top. There's more to see there. I think it's interesting that Uranus is, you know...
The North node's exactly where it was during the last Saturn-Uranus square.
Yeah, it's crazy, that one
degree Gemini. And that's where Mars has now entered. Look, Mars was in Gemini.
And didn't Mars retrograde in Gemini around...
In 43 into 44.
So it was a little bit before. And then Mars is going to retrograde over where that Uranus was.
Look, that was Saturn-Pluto.
And it was Saturn-Pluto-Leo.
And we just had that in the last 2 years. And that was Saturn-Pluto square Jupiter in Scorpio. We had that same alignment in 2006 with Saturn square Jupiter.
Yeah. And is it... Nope, it's not. I thought it might be semi-square Uranus, but it's not. Uranus and Gemini is fucking weird times.
You know, the build up to that week, if you go back, because he says June 26th, like there was a guy who said stuff, that was Sun starting to square Neptune in Libra, right? Like that's what's crazy, right? Like that, like the 26th, right? Boom, like there we are, the beginning of the Sun square Neptune, and that's kind of a weird period where there's also a lot of deception trying to, you know, make people feel comfortable and like, oh, it was a fucking weather balloon or da-da-da-da, right? Like, and Mars being on Algol that time, like it's like there's definitely extreme correlations, but the fact that the nodes are where the last shattered reality was, and then it continued. So like Roswell was just the beginning. So the idea of if you take 2021 and the shattered reality and the Saturn-Uranus square, and now here we are again with it in 2022 with Jupiter-Neptune, with Mercury opposed Neptune, with Jupiter as a semi-square to both in the midpoint of the square. This is going to be a continuation of more intense shattered reality of the technology, of the weird shit, what's really going on with the shot, like what was the plan behind it, what was the plan behind this stuff, what's up with why all these aircraft are being like now by the US government being so intensely looked at.
Well, what's interesting is Roswell, right? That was where it was all about like experimenting on the aliens. But now maybe we're just the aliens, because now it seems like all the experiments are being done directly to us.
Right, but what if it's crazy that there is, you know, if there's good and bad humans, there's good and bad aliens, right? But there's bad aliens that have taken over humans.
Exactly.
I mean, that's very Matrixy too. Like, you know, the whole like AI. I mean, like that's what when Neo gets finally in and he puts him in the loading program and he shows him like what the Matrix is. I'll never forget. He goes, it said that we're the ones who scorched the skies, but we gave birth to AI, right? And like that really always sits with me is like, it's artificial intelligence. Even aliens would not have artificial intelligence. They would have a divine somewhat intelligence. It is
another, in my opinion, an alien race. It's not like the AI we think where it's like these algorithms that we mess with or they get us, you know, banned on fucking Instagram or whatever. Like it's a straight consciousness, but it's not divine.
Right.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing is like, it's almost like people who have followed the program, they got plugged in.
And that was
well, what's crazy is, especially in the Silicon Valley, especially this whole idea of microdosing, right?
Right.
And especially being in the Bay Area, which you're from NorCal, and
yeah,
of course I'm a SoCal guy, but I've done plenty of psychedelics from Northern California, right? Like that's the place that even Timothy Leary would go, is California, and go up, and especially San Francisco during the times of the 60s, like that's where you did your psychedelics.
Yeah, it used to be groovy as fuck up there.
Right? So there was reports in like 2018 and 2019, all the Saturn Pluto started coming together, that a bunch of the CEOs, and even if you think about it, like Elon Musk himself goes to Burning Man, which is happening right now, right? And does psychedelics.
Klaus Schwab goes to fucking Burning Man.
Yeah, Carl Schwab.
All those creeps go to Burning Man. That's why I don't go to Burning Man. Gavin Newsom goes to Burning Man.
I know, and they burn a man.
It's fucking weird. The fact that all those motherfuckers go,
I know.
I'm like,
fuck that shit. The idea that they burn a man.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's the new, Bohemian Grove.
I lived an hour and a half away from Burning Man my entire life, and not once did I feel like I should go there.
My guides always said,
I don't know why. I guess
everybody I dealt with in that community was so fucking...
I mean, I've met some amazing people from the community, but they just didn't...
Well, it's very Aquarian in the sense that, like, we're all going to wear this and have a bicycle, and we're going to all have a top hat, and we're all going to have like...
it has a fun freedom shell to it, for sure, but I don't know. I wonder.
I feel like it's a sacrifice place.
I think it's a sacrifice too, and I don't think the people that go know.
Even
so I don't want to say the people that go are bad people for going, because I don't believe that's true at all. It's just.
But again, it's like, I don't think bad people took the shot, but
no,
same thing as Burning Man, because I've said the stories, man. Like, I dated a Burning Man DJ back in 2014, and man, I got fucking so judged because I don't wear Burning Man clothes, or I don't look like a burner, or because I play vocals in my DJ music, and I was just like, you're not
glam DJ.
Like, you don't want to follow our thing, then you're not allowed. And even the fact of the old way of getting tickets, I don't know if it's still the same, right? You had to do a test, the Burning Man rules and shit like that.
Even when that was the thing too, Burning Man, like
that's not very inclusive.
They wanted to do vax passports and shit. I don't know if they did or not, but they were talking about it. I was like, oh,
no.
God. Now I know.
One of my buddies
now I know.
who is there right now, who went to the planning committee last year in 2021, and they were like, unless you have this, you can't be part of it, and you can't be, like, they were that crazy. So the idea that Burning Man's this free place and they care about people is the most fucked up. I'm gonna flip them all off. Fuck you, all the Burning Man Commission people and all the people that put it together. You guys are not fucking real.
I agree. And it's too bad, because I think a lot of the people that go really do just want to showcase their art and be free. And
and I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that run it, the people that fucking put it together, and then they are installing
and then they're
a
sucking
fucking
everybody's
program
energy
into people
through the ritual.
Exactly. Of burning a man.
I know.
And what's crazy about that is, to go back to the Silicon Valley, because they all are connected there, but that a lot of the CEOs in the tech companies started doing microdosing and trying to conjure beings from other places in board meetings. It's actually in the fucking... People have come out of the meetings and been like, they fucking just microdosed a bunch of like psilocybin and LSD and fucking are trying to conjure fucking other beings to come through in the meetings. Right before...
I'm not surprised.
All this happened. Like... Hello? And that's the scary thing about microdosing. Like, and now they're like really trying to push that the new therapeutics, right?
Right.
But do it in a controlled setting where you have to have it through like a psychiatrist that would do it, that would be trained in it, and then like only 2 hours worth of the dose, and then like, but you're in their setting and they can program you in that setting. That's why it's scary. You want like a shaman if you're going to go down to Peru and you're going to go do ayahuasca. That actually is the real deal, because there's more stories now of people going to Peru and these fake shamanistic people, and then like throwing their fucking crazy shit on people and
you're so susceptible in that space.
I know.
Anytime I've ever done any sort of psychedelic, mushrooms, acid, it's the people you're around that make the whole thing go the way it's going to go. Like, I've been around really amazing people, and I've seen levels of consciousness that I am so grateful for. And I've been around people that were not so on it, and I've seen some dark, crazy shit. You know, you're so susceptible. You have no boundaries. It's very Piscean.
Zero boundaries.
You have no boundaries. So when you get into that
off.
place, you better know, like, if you don't want to be someone's lab rat when you're wide open to whatever they're putting consciously into your system. It's not.
Yeah, like I would not do government done or approved.
No,
like, and I know that everybody's like wanting it. Like, yeah, make it that way. But I'm like maybe back in the 60s when Timothy Leary was around. Yeah. And they, you know, I feel bad that we don't have a Timothy Leary around anymore in the world.
I know.
Like, I feel like it's like, you know, like that. And I know that people think he's CIA or da-da-da-da. But it's like, no, I listened to that guy. I've done plenty of acid. I fucking like, that motherfucker was on the fucking tip.
Oh, he knew what was up.
He knew what was up. So it's like.
I love him so much.
Like,
he literally told people,
I know.
Think for yourself.
I know.
Fuck yeah.
I know. So I'm saying that now, when you see that those articles have been coming out as we're coming to this crazy experiment, it's like they want to experiment on people. Like the way that the original CIA military used acid for was dropping acid on troops and then seeing how they would do in battle. And they all just went in the forest, laid down, smoked cigarettes, laughed, couldn't even remember what their mission was, wandered around.
No desire to kill
dropped their
person.
guns,
Yeah.
ran in the forest, had a good time, and were laughing with their buddies, right? So that puts people in a state, though, where then, oh yeah, come into this
Extremely
area,
vulnerable.
and then fucking program them, CIA, which we've been seeing for years, right? Flashing things. You know, I could see like a fucking Biden video all twitched out, like
MK
fucking
Ultra
like, you know,
on
what I mean?
steroids,
Fucking
right?
Corn Pop was a good bad dude, like, you know,
Oh
like,
my God.
like, you know, like vote we're Democratic, you know, like abortion rights and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like I could just see them. This is what you need to heal, and you need to change genders too.
Ukraine.
Like I'm not kidding. Like that's what's fucking going on right now.
The programming is going to be very, 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 very outer worldly. Like we've never, and it's crazy to even think that or say that because it's been so bad for the last 3 years that to even think that we could see another level of that is pretty fucking terrifying.
Like look at everywhere. NBC News, psilocybin mushrooms found to help people with alcohol use disorder. They're pushing cut rate ketamine therapy on TikTok. Psychedelic magic mushroom ingredient could help treat alcohol. Biden administration plans for legal psychedelic therapies within 2 years. Boom. Psilocybin therapy sharply reduces excess drinking, right? Psilocybin trips combined with therapy reduce alcohol. So they're trying to do this whole, oh, it's because it reduces alcohol. But when you really go into it, when you take fucking commie news network, right? Like in what researchers are calling the first published randomized trial. Hey, yeah, sorry, Timothy Leary did all this work at Harvard and then was kicked out for it. So when you're ahead of the game and you're doing things, like he was censored for doing that, kicked out of Harvard, right? Went up to fucking Millbrook at a house in New York for years and did it on his own and kept doing the fucking experiments.
That's fucking how Uranus and Aquarius works.
I know.
It's like the people you think are the weirdo for doing something different and unique that get castrated and outcasted. Eventually, that was the thing. Like it becomes cool then. It becomes the next trend.
It does, but I'm like, I don't trust it.
Oh, no, I don't trust it from them at all.
I would trust it from a Timothy Leary in Millbrook.
Yeah, the people who are blazing that trail now
already
for the collective.
Yeah, not these like,
no,
we're going to give the same people that injected everybody with an experiment.
No.
We're going to give them this and start saying, here, come into therapy fucking with me and let me give you this. And let's, this is the program manual that the Biden administration is giving me to make you stop your drinking. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, that's going to go real well. And one of the major studies that Timothy Leary did was when you're in like a room, like a government room, because he would take people to churches, he'd take people to government buildings, jails, like, you know, you're uncomfortable in a room in a fucking office building, even if you had a therapist. That would be the most, I would fucking flip the script on that shit. I'd be like, You let me the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like fucking with the fucking hearing the fucking AC in the background on and the fucking like, you know, and like having the little fucking, you know, the worker at the front like on her phone, and I'll be like, what the fuck? She's like cheating on her boyfriend right now. Like, cause you get that fucking intense with everything. You feel it all, especially on acid. I get like, whoa, that's exactly what's happening, right?
Straight
Especially
up.
as an intuitive. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly, holy fuck. Like that is the last place I want to be, is in an office building.
For sure. You want to be out in nature.
Nature with friends, and I don't want anybody being like, this is how we're gonna fix you, and take this now, and fucking. And the microdosing thing has been a very interesting thing, because now if what is Pfizer gonna make it?
Probably, or Moderna. Except they're having that crazy lawsuit.
That's another Saturn Uranus square thing, right? The
know.
shadow reality, right? And the government owns a bunch of Moderna, right? They own the
Fauci,
patent, and they say like they make Moderna seem like, oh yeah, it's just this company. No, it's the U.S. government. It's Fauci as a big majority shareholder, and then the shareholders that are in the public. And if you try to make money off those companies, like, and what's been done, like that's the worst karma in the world.
Probably. Yeah. Anytime you're banking on somebody else getting fucked.
But I don't want to discredit the psychedelic effects that actually do. Like I quit speed after an acid trip. Like I took a lot. Not a microdose, not a little microdose. No.
Microdosing wasn't even a thing when I was doing this shit.
That's what I'm saying. There was no such
Nobody
thing.
just took a little bit to kind of feel. You went all the way.
No, you went all the way.
Yeah.
Like one hitter quitter, fucking holy shit,
Yeah.
16 hours.
Straight
And I remember
up.
I was fucking frying my ass off in Hollywood. And fucking, I remember being like, why do I smoke speed? Like, why? Like, because I had some bad situations I remember happened where I met chicks at raves, and one came to my house and I fucking was up for 4 days straight and I couldn't even like interact. And she was like, I mean, I'm bad, but like you're bad, you know, like you can't even like be here. Like you can't even like energetic. Like, I felt like I was in the movie Spun.
Yeah.
And I remember the acid then months after that moment came up for me, and me being like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I spending all my money, and why am I going and doing all this crazy shit to get fucking my speed, right? My meth, and fucking it brought up my brother having to come to my house, and the embarrassment, like my whole life I have to my brother's gonna remember me, you know, this is back when I was in my 20s, but like that his friends know that, you know, like I was the guy you came to fucking, what do you need? Fucking, I got it. Like, and like, hey, try that. Like, you know, it was just fucking like, acid is the thing that really made me go, oh shit. And mushrooms is the shit that showed me that there were reptilian technologies. Like, and I didn't know what a reptilian was. It took me years after those experiences to even fucking finally come to a conclusion of that's what I saw. Like years. It's not instant. It's not instant.
The microdosing's playing with it. I feel like if you want the medicine, you got to go all the way in. You can't be afraid of it, right?
You have to go all the way in.
You have to go
that's
all the
like
way
that's
in.
like sex, like saying like just the tip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like fucking, you know what I mean? Like,
never
like,
gets the
like
job
they,
done.
yeah, you're not gonna make a baby, and if you do make a baby, that's pretty sad. Like you didn't even make love. You know what I mean? Like, wow.
That'd be a rough phone call.
Yeah, that would be a rough phone call. Like it was just the tip, and it really didn't go in, and like, but I'm
But you
pregnant.
came, motherfucker.
I was like, wow. But you know, like here, it's like I say psilocybin saved my life, and I would say that those drugs, I wouldn't say saved my
I'm
life.
so grateful for those
I
drugs.
would say that
wouldn't
they
have-
directed my life in
Yeah.
the right direction.
Yeah, yeah. Consciousness wise, I kind of quit alcohol and smoking weed just before I really got into a couple big doses that I would say changed my life. So it just all happened at the right time, and I didn't seek it out. I think there's something too about like it just shows up at the right time when you need it.
This is
Who
the
is
guy.
this guy?
This is the guy who took psilocybin and it saved his life from drinking.
Oh,
Of course, they pick a guy who's this.
I don't
guy.
believe him.
Well, like look at his eyes. I mean, he might have kind of like, okay, maybe he was changed, but he had a microdose.
I don't believe that guy exists. I think he's AI.
He could be AI, right? We've done that whole thing. If these effects hold up in future trials, psilocybin will be a real breakthrough in the treatment of alcohol use disorder. He's also a paid consultant to several companies, bringing psychedelics to market. The need for new treatments for alcohol is critical. I agree with this, but how is this going to be installed correctly? Maybe we should be picking spiritual people to do it and not fucking books, like trained, programmed. Because how are you, this is where the craziness is with
I know where you're going
psychedelics.
with
You know what I'm talking about is You're going to pick somebody in the program, just like in Matrix 4.
Mm-hmm.
What does he give fucking Neo the whole time? Fucking a blue pill.
Blue pill, blue pill,
Blue pill.
That's exactly
and
what
keeps him in the program. You can program people better than ever on psychedelics if you are controlling the narrative. That was what they did with all the CIA testing. They would keep their eyes open and make them watch crazy movies on psychedelics, and they would go terrifying. It could go to the worst experience or the best experience of your life. There's no in between. There's no in between.
There really isn't.
You are on the cliff of heaven or the cliff of hell. Like, you know what I mean? And that's part of the breakthrough the ego. And that's something that you do on your own. It's the experience through yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the self-awareness that comes from it, not the somebody else telling you and showing you some guide through it. That's where we all got to like go on our own. That's where the power's at.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of scary that like these now, the same people that people fell for and trusted for the last 2 years are now saying, yeah, let's do this. The underlying is, oh, like, you know, they're making it into pills and right? You know what I mean? And they're, pills. You know, what's old is new again, right? It's like, and they don't even give like Timothy Leary the credit here. Okay, they do. Here we go.
Oh, good.
We're fired. In 1962, and the university discovered they had been giving LSD to their students. The use of psychedelics for research began to lose its luster. Larry began to speak out publicly, encouraging young people to take LSD recreationally. He quickly became the face of the drug counterculture with the signature message, turn on, tune in, drop out. They're not trying to say that. They're trying to say fucking drop back in the system without being an alcoholic, but stay in the system and stay a good slave.
Yeah, just like the therapist in the Matrix, like you said.
Right.
Oh, I'm your friend. I got you. I keep you here in reality, not in your imagination.
Yeah, like, oh, like, you know, it's like, oh, Timothy Leary was so bad. Now he's good, but they're not going to take his messages or show his YouTube videos. If you look him up and watch his debates, oh, they're so amazing.
Yeah, he was such a...
And it was about alcohol. He's like, okay, you could go with the fucking suit and tie, because back in the 60s, right, in the 70s, that's like, there were two different, there was the hippie and then there was the suit and tie, and it was like, and then there's beatniks and all that shit. And he's like, okay, you want to trust the whiskey drinking, fucking wife cheating, fucking, you know, dudes that are up there fucking, or are you going to trust the people that have done the psychedelics and, you know, are looking at love? And he always spoke about love. He always spoke about love. I don't see them talking about love once in this article.
Nope.
Psychedelics is about love and God and a higher fucking realm. It's not about, oh yeah, I just want to quit my fucking drinking. It's not like hypnosis. Like go and, you know, real hypnosis do past life therapies to do it. Not just like, I'm going to hypnotize you. You're not going to think about drinking anymore. You're not going to think about smoking anymore. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wake up. Oh yeah. It's like those hypnotherapists are fucking weak. But I'm scared because this is the way that you program people. Oh, put on VR goggles.
Oh God.
Think about that.
Ultra MK.
Now, if I was on my own and I already have my Oculus cracked as a developer, so I can change things, right? But like, yeah, like you know, I feel like these kind of things need to be done by people on their own in the freedom and not through government and not through the doctors.
100%.
I think that that's been proved, and that might be the shadow reality, though, is like
everything.
But I feel like, you know, if you take a normie and you throw them into this world and then you reinstate the program on them, and the new way the program is like, change your gender. Maybe you need to change your gender. That's why you're an alcoholic.
Oh God.
Or, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because when you're, especially psilocybin, acid, I could take a lot and still work through.
Acid's interesting because you can kind of come back when you need to. You can like,
you can at least,
but then you'll come
you can at least fucking still be aware that you are a soul. Like the psilocybin, when I took, you know,
I always was aware
journeys,
it was a soul, but I wasn't always physical.
Right, exactly.
Go back and forth.
I would say that you were still here in a way, and everywhere.
Yes.
But on psilocybin, it gets so
I like acid way more than
but like, you know, I did 7.5 grams hero's dose.
Damn.
And I fucking you cannot even fucking think about how to go pee. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like the world, like it was cartoon. It was reptilians. I didn't even know. It was fucking you there's no way you can even cognitively even understand. You are gone. The reality is gone.
Yeah, you're on the cloud.
And if anybody at that time wanted to try and fucking put something on me, I would have fucking it's like you have one opening for help. Just help me, God. And if anything shows up, you'd accept it as God.
Yeah, that's mushrooms.
That's mushrooms.
Yeah.
So, people are like, oh yeah, fucking just like, yeah, like you. I'm like, that shit you don't fuck around with. Unless you know what you're really fucking doing. Because that shit will program you. And
then you're not susceptible to someone else coming through and hitting you with
look at how they
nasty.
say this too. No longer administered solely in the relative safety of a lab or a psychiatrist's office, LSD became to feature in horror stories as bad acid trips at colleges and concerts. Headlines that appeared alongside images of anti-Vietnam protests and Woodstock attendees. That was fucking amazing. I don't know where they're fucking saying that was bad. And then the U.S. outlawed LSD and research projects were shut down or forced underground. Then came the 1970 Controlled Substance Act signed by Richard Nixon. It classifies all hallucinogenics, including psilocybin, as Schedule I drugs. But your fucking Hydra fucking COVID fucking shot is fucking not an illegal substance and kills people. Has killed more people than probably LSD has ever killed anybody or anybody. You know what I mean?
I don't think LSD's ever...
I mean, there's been a couple incidences where people like jump out the window.
That's not...
I know, but I'm just saying that, so you can't say that it hasn't killed people, but very small amount.
Well, you could say that person killed themselves.
Correct. and that's why, that's where it kind of, I feel like it's something that's called to you and you know when to do it. It's not something that you go like call up somebody like on a Friday night.
I wouldn't watch this show and be like, I'm going to go get some acid just because they talked about it.
Right.
Like, that's probably not the right time. It's like situations, like you'll end up somewhere, somebody will have it and it'll be the right vibe. And
it'll be the right vibe and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Or it won't be the right vibe and you'll feel it before you get there because acid's a trip. You can almost feel it before you take it. At least in my life I have. Like I would know I was about to maybe take some with a friend and I would feel the trip coming
after your first trip. Before your first trip, it's just massive.
It's a weird feeling though.
Faded, extreme, and you usually have friends around
ideally,
that are like
not some
supportive and like we're gonna look after each other and the thrill of like, okay, we're gonna do this. It's like we all do it at the same time the first time. It's not like, and I had a couple of buddies who had done it, so it was like okay, but like a lot like. 3 of us hadn't, and like 2 of them had.
Right.
Like, so it's like
we live in a weird world where we can't just trust doctors. There's some great, amazing doctors out there, but look at all the doctors that told children to get vaccinated. Sticky pokey. Look at all the doctors that told people to do really dumb shit over the last couple of years. Like it's rough. Like
and they're like and they're trying to say, a worrisome rise in drinking, right? The new study enrolled 93 people with diagnosed alcohol disorder who had drunk heavy at least 4 days a month. I mean, they're pushing that forever. I mean, even the war in Ukraine, right? Remember when it was just starting and it was like, Kiev on alert. And then that funny video on CNN where it then turns to like Applebee's with get wings and beer. But right? Like it's fucking everywhere.
Well, the drinking's a rough one too. And that they're using that because it is a problem right now.
It's a huge problem. And that's Jupiter, Neptune, Pisces. And I predicted, I told people, I'm like, I don't think people realize like there's going to be prohibition again. They're going to say, they're going to blame it on that too. Oh no, it's from people that they died because they drank so much. It's like, why are the homeless people all still alive?
Right. And they're the ones doing
crazy shit. Like they're not even smoking fucking Sherm back in the day. They're not even smoking ish anymore. They're smoking fucking straight bath salts from Mexico and shit.
Still breathing somehow. And yet a normal person who just thought they were doing the right thing because they were told to do it are dying in their sleep.
I would say an experiment maybe, and I don't know, I look at the astrology and the transit in my life when I did like some of the craziest stuff in my life, and it was very massive, crazy squares.
Yeah,
and so I would,
they make greatness for sure.
But it's one of those times where it's like, I don't know if this would be the time to go. I'm gonna go pop off and do a bunch of fucking shrooms right now, or I'm gonna go like especially with the weird influences going around, the sun influences, the influences of CERN that has happened. It looks like they just stopped operation recently, but they're using that as a device to try and send out energy outside of this place and see if it echoes back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a transponder. Like it's like a fucking, like that's been like the download I've been getting lately is like they're fucking trying to communicate and see what's good or bad, or they're trying to fucking do some weird frequency adjustments. And I don't know if it'll act the same. You know, because we're in such a different
that time now.
Yeah.
I think that could have been the thing then, but now I think it's much more about self-love. And I had this download today driving here. I was thinking about all the yods to Leo that we've had with Mercury, the Sun, and Venus, you know, currently that's building up from Pluto, Neptune in Pisces and Capricorn. And like that self-love, like just taking it back to the basics of Leo was just like self-love and creativity. And especially with Venus there, how important that is. That's the spiritual, if we're in a spiritual war too, it comes back to love and it comes back to love of self. And it's not so much about a substance. It's not so much about a thing. We can make it about things. We want it to be about things, but it's more just self-acceptance through weird, crazy times. And instead of trying to numb, because that's what Neptune kind of wants us to do in Pisces too, is what can I numb out with? Like I'd sit here and smoke a jewel all day, but I'm not trying to escape with it. We can't do anything but find that self-love in a big way right now. And I think that's part of the purification that we're in as we're in Virgo season 2. And like, I don't know, it just hit me today. Like that's where we're going to find courage, is when we love ourselves. And we're all in a time right now. And I feel like with whether it's relationships or money or jobs or the system or the crazy propaganda, we're all getting thrown into places that we're having to really come back to where we love ourselves and like be in that and be in it sober. It's like sobering now that you have to just deal with the shit and you can't escape it. And that's where we're all going to come out, in my opinion, on the other side in a much better place just within ourselves. And if we have that, we got the rest.
This is an interesting article because, well, I do want to like say something back about what you said. Is like, I feel like it's a lot, bro.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that it's a dangerous moment when people are afraid to love, period. Whether it's themselves, whether it's external things.
Yeah, love is terrifying right now.
And that's the whole thing, is can you open up your heart for yourself and for all good things in the universe? And can you do that and realize that there's fate with Neptune and Pisces and Pluto and Capricorn?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's beyond fated, and there's no more transits the rest of this year. And then with Pluto and Neptune, that I guess next year there'll be some
they're
Leo
pulling
stuff.
apart though.
There'll be some more
that
Leo
sextile's
next year.
actually, it's been around for most of us this whole time. It's not going to be there forever. Neptune's about to pull away.
And so I feel that, and I'm going to show this article that Timothy Leary put out back in the day. This is from 1966. Leary says he'll stop USD use, warns of new race of mutants.
Well,
I mean, you know what I mean?
He wasn't
like,
wrong.
You know, he's like, Leary hastened, however, to praise the gains which have resulted from experience with LSD and hallucinogens. LT cures alcoholism. He said this back in the day. So it's not like it's new info. I hate how CNN and all them is like, we finally have done some blind shit.
no, you finally accepted it.
No, you finally accepted it.
Because you're going to use it for your own fucking shit.
But he goes, but the possible harmful side effects of the drug, he advised develop further methods to produce the psychedelic effects without using LSD. By simply using lights, combination of sound, and the stroboscope, we can get the marijuana effect, the mescaline effect, and the LSD effect. I don't know how the psychedelic explosion can be stopped, and I don't even know if it's good or bad. But I do know that our society is not so perfect that it cannot stand a generation of experiment. Leary's doubts about the psychedelic movement did not extend to marijuana. The only problem with marijuana, he said, is that it's almost free. It's not addictive, non-toxic, and less dangerous than alcohol. Widespread use of marijuana could undoubtedly harm the liquor business. If it was wild, cheap weed were made readily available to the public, he predicted that within 5 to 10 years, people will be licensed to use marijuana. He was right about that. He was about 20 years off on that. Leary is presently free on bail, pending appeal of a federal sentence of 30 years in prison. This is when they raided his house in Millbrook, of course. But But the mutant energy, right? Like, it's kind of interesting to see how there is kind of like a weird thing that he might be on. I mean, he did do a lot of work with Ram Dass. They were good friends. But he always said that it had to come from a spiritual place.
100%.
Not a, especially from what he went through at Harvard.
Any acid trips I've ever had pre-spiritual influence in my life were never the same. The ones afterwards, when they had spiritual intent built into them, those had like meaning and substance to them, where the other ones were like, oh, look, I'm tripping. It's not. Yeah, like it wasn't the same.
His book, The Psychedelic Experience, was a manual based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And this is right, he died in he live streamed his death. He was the first live stream. Did you know that?
I didn't.
And of course he worked with Terence McKenna and so forth. But, this book's pretty deep describes their discoveries in broadening spiritual consciousness through a combination of Tibetan meditation techniques and psychotropic substances. That these doctors are not going to be understanding the true spiritual meditation. They're trying to do this other weird non-natural meditation, right, that all these celebrities use, which is just like, just close your eyes and sit down for 5 minutes in your room. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not the real fucking... and the Tibetans use what? The lunar cycle. The Tibetan lunar astrology is where we get the dark of the moon, right? The balsamic phase of the moon. It's from the Tibetan astrologers, not the Vedics, not the Westerners, the Tibetans. So it's like, again, missing the whole point that these experiments, if they don't have a substance, it's funny that we call them substances that we use, but if they don't have actual sustenance spiritually, it's not going to go well, and it will turn people into program mutants.
He was right about all his other predictions. So.
He was right.
He was right about that one too. You already see it.
And it makes me a little nervous about that we are entering into too many experimental places. I think that experiments in your own life about love, about, getting out of these crazy matrix scenarios in your life, that's the experiment to take. But everything else is not a good experiment. And don't fix what's not broke in your life either.
That's a good point.
But the stuff that feels like it's not that it's broke, that just feels like it's out of alignment right now, is going to be love-based solutions, not external, like, well, I need to take LSD in order to fucking change my life right now.
No.
Like, it's almost like they're throwing this in the middle of where people are already in a maze, they're already lost, and the last thing that you'd want to do is take LSD in the middle of a maze. I mean, taking LSD for the first time at Coachella in 2006 was fucking nuts. That's a maze already, and like, you know what I mean? Like, that's already crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Imagine this energy now. I couldn't imagine being a stoner right now and watching all this shit and fucking being like, holy fuck.
I'm so glad I quit that before these times.
I would be I would be tripping balls. I'd be tripping balls. I'd be like, holy fuck, because I was always super aware from marijuana, and I'd be like, and that's what made me so spiritual was all these substances.
They definitely played a role.
A huge role. And I just think
but then it was like time to move on.
But I feel like they're trying to create a fake spirituality now.
Yeah.
A mutant one.
Just like everything else.
And guy, I love Timothy Leary. I wish he was really here to have his debates that he did. I always recommend people to watch on YouTube to look at his debates because they were so good and they had him on television, but they used to make him look like he was crazy, And
he always made great points.
Like here, like this, look at the NIH has this, the Dr. Leary's Concord Prison Experiment, a 34-year follow-up study. This is where he brought people to a prison and put them on LSD when he was working at Harvard, right? So he gave them psilocybin-assisted group psychotherapy to 32 prisoners in an effort to reduce recidivism rates. The follow-up study involved a search through the state and federal criminal justice system records of 21 of the 32 subjects, as well as the personal interviews of the 2 subjects and 3 of the researchers, Timothy Leary, Ralph Menzer, and Gunther Well. The results of the follow-up study indicate that published claims of a treatment effect were erroneous. The follow-up study supports the emphasis in the original reports of the necessity of embedding psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy with inmates within a comprehensive treatment plan that includes post-release non-drug group support programs and yada, 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 right? That's where they're going to see what I mean? Like it's already in the literature. And this goes back fucking of 98. And you know what's funny is look at Timothy Leary's death, right? So like, okay, 96, he live streamed his death.
Yeah.
In 1996, taking NOS hits and smoking weed. I watched it.
He went out like a G.
I watched it. It was fucking...
But see, he knew that wasn't, like, death was an illusion through all the places he'd been. Like, he just was so ahead of his time. He wasn't scared to leave his body.
And look at President Nixon's words, the most dangerous man in America, right? So it's like today, right? President Biden, the unvaxxed are the most dangerous people in the fucking world. And it's like, wait, what? Now look at all these years later and fucking how things have changed.
But have they? It's like the same thing over and just repeating itself.
And it was under Nixon.
But now instead of
that he changed to the fiat currency a year later.
One person, now they're singling out everybody that's not programmed by their system.
Right, but I think, you know, what's even more crazy about all this is the idea of when Nixon was doing the whole Substance Act order, he brought Elvis. Elvis was on every pharmaceutical, he was on Quaaludes. And he was eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches with fucking bacon. No, nothing wrong with that. It sounds probably pretty bomb if you're on Quaaludes, I guess. But you know, he's addicted to Quaaludes. That's when he started gaining weight and he started becoming the 70s Elvis that was fucking like
fat
the
Elvis.
Vegas 70s Elvis, fat and fucking blah, blah, blah. And that's who he had up there standing there fucking blah. Right? So when you think of all the celebrities over the last 2 years, right? Like, get the shot, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like they're not.
No.
You know, it's like, oh, where's Justin Bieber now? You haven't heard shit since that. Right? Like, where's fucking his wife? Like, she was a big star. Like, oh, fucking no. Yeah, she had a fucking stroke.
We talked about Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah, and Ashton Kutcher. And all of it. Like, look what happened to them. Look what happened to Elvis. What do you think is going to happen to all the celebrities that did the same thing? Fell for the same thing with Chiron and Aries. That was a Chiron and Aries thing. I did a whole thing about it. How Chiron and Aries brought up the whole idea of like Elvis going to, and then Lady Gaga in my Hypergate. Remember that shit? And that Biden is the Nixon of bringing in the fucking change of the fucking financial system the same way that Nixon did. The pushing of fucking a certain way of drugs, like pushing alcohol and pushing all these things instead of fucking these other things. It's the same shit. Now it's all inversed, you know?
Yeah. Completely agree with you.
That's fucking crazy. Especially Lady Gaga is like the Elvis who you're going to watch grow fat, old, and fucking crazy and go crazy. And like, she already fucking looks like hell. Just going to say it, like, you know, she doesn't look like the Lady Gaga, and she fucking was at the fucking inauguration and is in on that whole thing.
Yeah, dressing up like the Hunger Games and all that. Like, that was so fucking planned.
And it was
so weird.
It was weird because it was the same degree. It was the same shit in his chart and her chart and all this weird shit. And, you know, I was like, I don't even remember that in Hypergate, but it was fucking like in my school. People were blown the fuck away. I was blown away.
It was crazy.
That it was the exact same degree and the exact same like weird transit with it that had the picture in the White House of Elvis promoting this whole Substance Act with Nixon, and then with the picture of fucking Lady Gaga with fucking Biden. And I was like, uh-oh, we're fucked. They're fucking about to do so. It's like a fucking signature move, you know? And Nixon ended up fucking on his next term doing fucking crazy shit. Like, he was spying on the fucking Democratic Party. Now it's flipped. Yeah. Now Biden's spying on the Republican Party and doing the Mar-a-Lago thing and doing the Justice Department bullshit. I mean, it's worse than Watergate.
Big time. We've never seen anything like what's going on now.
Well, the closest would be Nixon and what Nixon did.
Yeah, Nixon was.
So, you know, it's like, you know, and I don't think Democrats are ready to prepare themselves that they have Biden who is a Nixon up there right now. Doing Nixon shit. Worse. And that Lady Gaga that they love so much is an Elvis who is fucking pushing along an agenda that is fucking horrible for humanity.
Yeah, they're all gonna.
And then now they just brought Elvis the movie out. Think about that. I just saw it on my Apple TV. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to watch that. And guess who's in that movie? Tom Hanks.
Go figure.
And every time Tom Hanks shows up, they're about to fucking throw the fucking book at everybody in the craziest.
Never fails. That guy, it's so interesting how he pops up right before every big event or during it. Or
I know.
Like, what the fuck? How did he just become the key? Like, oh, Tom Hanks.
I think he was at Epstein Island a bunch.
Yeah, most likely. I wouldn't be surprised. They all, whatever that place was, they all were there.
And how they installed him as an implant, so many things, like about weird things. Apollo 13. You can go, the list goes on. Or even the idea of him being, like on an island lost, right? Like with Wilson, like, and like the plane crash with FedEx fucking plane. And like all the weird shit with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think people are ready to fucking look that deep down the rabbit hole about him and the movies and the messages that come out, or Forrest Gump, and like there's some weird shit in all of it, especially at that time period and the time periods and the evolution of it. It's like they try to skip over some things. And guess who Tom Hanks meets in that movie as the president? Nixon.
So when we see Tom Hanks and Biden,
that'll be the scariest moment of our lives. If it gets to that level, if Tom Hanks and
that's
Nixon,
when the aliens are dropping.
If Tom Hanks and Biden come, that we are in the fuck. That is a shadow reality that the glass is about to break, and the fact that they used Tom Hanks to do the whole first celebrity. He's in Australia, and look at the fucking shit that happened to Australia over the last 2 years and the lockdowns there and the way that they treat Australians down there, right? And now he had his typewriter, his Underwood typewriter. Or no, it said what? It was, his typewriter said Corona on it, right?
The weirdest shit.
Or
the picture with like the glove.
The glove, all of it. Like, and the fact that they're popping Elvis up and it's a Chiron Aries thing with Elvis and all that. Like, I'm just waiting for another Lady Gaga movie now to be... I don't know. Maybe she wants to play a man, play Nixon. I don't know.
But there's a lot of signs. There's a lot of things coming that we can look for. I feel like there's going to be a lot of signs that show up with characters that have been playing in the movie and certain things that are going to be really good keys. And if you're just paying attention, it's easy to see, and you'll be like, "Oh shit, I'm going to keep an eye out for that."
Yeah, I think that's the best that we can do at this moment. And I think that this Saturn-Uranus square with Jupiter being in the semi-square, and then it's leading into the eclipses, it's leading into Pluto direct, or even, as you were mentioning earlier, these eclipses are going over China, Ukraine, like...
Mainly Russia and Ukraine.
I know.
Like that whole Eastern European...
Yeah, World War III is, with Mars retrograde, and with all, like, the last time was during World War II in Gemini fully. Square Neptune, like, this is going to be like the biggest propaganda
with
lie
Venus
with Mercury retrograde opposing Neptune, with all of it, the build up, like that. And it's so crazy to be here on August 29th talking about this, and just in 1 month,
I know
it's hitting like crack.
1 month, and then the next month it'll be solar eclipse, and Mars will be going retrograde.
It's just gonna be like one thing after another. And it's like people need to prepare now and find love and happiness and find their self-love and find their and open their hearts and stop living in the fucking matrix, literally. Like, before you get put into a matrix where you are in a pod in a weird way, where you are the pod. Like, like it's that point.
Yeah, the time's now.
And all the crazy media stuff is what Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces is. And also the drug use, the fact that there's so much fentanyl and there's so much of that, like, it's like crazy. Like, anybody even trusting any of this shit right now.
Yeah, it's all the drugs, right?
Because all the drugs, they're putting in everything.
The shot is a drug, right? It's just every single where you look, like a substance that's being given to people is probably the worst thing you could do. I mean, not always the case, but yeah.
Well, like Virgo rules, like, the understanding of like medicine.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be...
So there's an exact dosage and all like that kind of stuff. And again,
And you probably don't need a painkiller
does
every day.
trials with it for years before it's allowed on the market, whereas this does not. It's under an emergency use. Virgo does not accept an emergency to get rid of the natural way of bundling natural wheat.
Right.
Or use GMO or, right? Like, you know what I mean? So the idea that a medicine is emergency used in Virgo is like a red flag already, right? Because of a dose and how much of you put it, like, no, and it's an emergency use. Like, you've never really tested this, and you're going to test this on our Gaia humanity with technology and recoding people's fucking RNA and then saying it won't cross over the DNA, but it is crossing over the DNA. And all these people are dying, and then all the excess death rates
died, all the humans.
Like, you know, like, will you get off Mac Mini? I just want to share one last thing before we end this show, because iMac is done.
You're open.
Grazie. Yeah, so here we go. Fucking so right now, I recommend everybody go watch this video by Dr. John Campbell. It just came out in the last day of excess deaths, the data. So I'm frozen on here, but this is what the main doctors and the main people that are coming out of the UK, Scotland, and around the world are showing. I feel like there is a lack of clear thinking at the moment, and when it comes to people's health and well-being, you can't wait. It's unacceptable, right? Well, let me show that. But in here, you can look at injury into excess deaths in Scotland since the start of the pandemic, indications of utility of cardiac genetic testing in athletes and how horrible it's been. And then here, the excess all-cause mortality rate. Here's the American one, and it's not updated for this year, right? So the excess all-cause mortality across countries in the United States, March 2020 through December 2021, right? So out of the 900, so this includes, you know how they said we reached 1 million people that died of COVID? 171,000 of them, 18% were not from COVID.
Probably more.
With no explanation. So then you move that now where we've been at, where 2022 has been the most extreme, and other countries are sounding the alarms, and we're not getting the info. So why do you think Fauci's quitting?
Yeah, no shit.
Why do you think Rochelle Walensky at the CDC is like, we need to clean this place up? Clean up our mess that we don't want people to see, because that's extreme. So even when Biden goes, I can't believe 1 million people have died from COVID, right? He gets the numbers. Oh, wait, no, what about the 200,000 of them that were not assigned to COVID-19 on death certificates as an underlying cause of death? And these are excess, more than the average of the 5-year average. So this is all just coming out. And people are so stupid. I can't believe how people are not believing. Like I get told all the time by all these crazy liberal fucking astrologers that are hitting me up like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, this is what I warned about. This is what's happening. This was the story I was going to show earlier, is that what's targeted this is the mountain bike rider that just won the Scottish title at age 37, 2 days after, goes to bed and just dies in his sleep.
Completely normal.
He's been doing it his whole life, so he's never had a heart problem, right? He doesn't already have some valve issue.
You would assume he would have the most insanely strong heart.
Well, that's how it's always worked. But why are all the athletes dying? And this actually got the Scottish government to go, we have a problem because we're seeing this everywhere, and to publish the papers in the last week and say, no more.
It's sad we have to see
America
things like
won't
that,
do it
but
right now.
Thank God some governments are actually standing up and looking at this. It's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it's very absurd. It's like there were zero symptoms either, right? Just in his sleep, died. Like he went into cardiac arrest while he was laying in bed. I tried, and the paramedics arrived within minutes, but his heart stopped and they couldn't bring him back. 2 days after. And his partner is a fucking Olympian. Right? That's cray-cray. That's the Telegraph, and then is it the Guardian one? Oh, that was the one I was on. 2 days after winning it. And this is what caused it all to come up, right? And then if you look here, boom, here's in Parliament. Boom. This just came out, literally, right? Boom. Injury into excess deaths in Scotland since the start of the pandemic, right? The committee sought views on following questions. Has the public health immunity shifted from COVID-19 deaths to deaths of non-COVID-19? Is there evidence that patients are now presenting in more acute condition? What accounts for the deaths of non-COVID-19 conditions? Is there enough of the strategic focus on the indirect health impacts of the pandemic? What are the realistic options open to the government in addressing the indirect health impact of the virus in the winter? Right? So the correspondence, so they are going into this, and then here's the data.
They're not, it doesn't seem like
all
they're really
these liberal
talking
fucking
about,
crazy people fucking literally can't handle it.
Even that though, it seemed like they kept the jab out of it.
Well, what's crazy, it's happening in all, right? So it's happening in all age groups, right? So XX deaths were above average in week 9 of 2022 for the first time in 9 weeks. That's when everybody got boosted.
Right.
Right? Excess deaths are the number of deaths registered in a week minus the average number of deaths registered in the same week. And it's just been continually going up, right? So when you look at emergency admissions, right, in 2022, and you look at the amount, right, they're just dying at home. They're not dying in the emergency room. It's lower. There's lower amount of people in the last 2 years that went to the emergency room.
There's no time. They just...
Right? Or planned admissions. Look at how low those are. Right? So the number of emergency admissions dropped to 60% of normal pre-COVID-19 levels in the week ending of 29 March, right? People were too afraid to go, or, right, they got told not to go.
Wow.
Right? The proportion, so when you look at the societal impacts, right? This is a lot of data, right? But when you actually get to it, that the mortality rate that is not COVID related, that is happening, the same situation. When you go into this, right, this is a lot of data to go through, which of course you can watch on the video that I watched. It is so insane, the amount of people that are dying right now, that bring it to a place that makes no sense at all, right? So... like loneliness, crime increases, education, deaths. Here we go. Yeah, I mean... So they're saying for this time of year, but when you go deeper into the data here, it's 11% is what Dr. John Campbell says. Like, let me find the data right here. Yeah. And then let me pause it. All right, here it is right here. So they talk about how this is the guy that we just showed, the paramedic arrived, right? And here we go. Okay, here we go. Injury into excess deaths in Scotland since the start of the pandemic. This is fucking... Deaths in Scotland are 11% above average for the first time of the year and have been above the average for the past 26 weeks. This is not COVID related.
It's a big percentage.
It's a big percentage. And the fact that this is just the basics of it, not the full data, that they're just going to start to go look for this stuff. Then he looks at the world chart of the excess deaths, and it's all the countries are in that 10% or more range. Deaths from all causes compared to over excess mortality, deaths from all causes, right? And you can see United States is sitting at the 10% line. And you look at Scotland went up to like 20, 30%. You have to remember United Kingdom and Scotland, they like forced it on people too. Like everybody got it.
Yeah.
Whereas America, didn't go through the whole thing, and 8% have at least one shot. But,
Yeah.
a lot of people were like, I don't know about this after one, right? Where all these other countries in Europe went through the whole thing, right? And so that's where you get, so America's at 10%. How weird.
It's
Russia.
crazy. I was just thinking the same
is a
thing.
negative.
All those countries that are like really highlighted are getting hit with the eclipse the hardest.
But that's what's weird, right? Like the countries that push this the most have excess deaths.
It's just the start, too.
This is just the beginning of the shattered reality. Hardcore edition. Like hardcore edition. Because nobody's really releasing the data. So when he looks at this, that purple line is excess deaths. That they're above COVID deaths. Right? So we are at a place to where people are not ready for the data to come out. And that's why in America you're seeing such a quieting of it. And that you're seeing this effect now that's going to blow, I think, people's minds. I don't think people are going to be ready for what is happening and what the officials are saying. Right here, I'll just show you what some of them are saying. Up to 80% of athletes who die suddenly had no symptoms or family history of heart disease in these excess mortalities ever since the shot came about. 80% of athletes who die suddenly had no symptoms or family history. So that's why I am terrified. I said it on the show, whether it was with you or with Dylan last week. I said, I am terrified of my friends who got that shit, who are out there in the gym working out.
Yeah, that was last week here.
It was last week here.
I know.
Because they'll think everything's fine. Go to bed, die. And that's where, right? If we look right here, right? So here in America, I just show you that 18% were not COVID related. So we got lied to again, right?
What a surprise.
Right? That it's not the underlying cause of death either. And that for the 14 of the past 15 weeks, around 1,000 extra deaths each week, none of which are due to COVID. And that's higher than we've ever seen. And that data was a guy who's showing it over 7 years. If the current trajectory continues, number of non-COVID excess deaths will soon outstrip COVID deaths this year.
No doubt.
And everybody also is dying of circulatory, diabetes, and cancers that are coming out of nowhere, or they already had it, or and that took the shot. Boom, 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 boom.
Autoimmune disease.
Yeah, and so excess deaths began to increase noticeably from around the end of April.
Interesting.
Right? 4 months into when they show in the data that you go to negative immunity after 3 months. Sustained rises in deaths should trigger an investigation. That may involve accessing the raw data of death certificates, which that's not even addressing yet. Right? Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, we're at a place to where the fucking governments are fucking, like, gonna try and stop this from coming out. A random sample of medical notes or analyzing autopsies. That's the other thing, is they put in all those rules that you can't analyze and do the autopsy shit. So people are so stupid believing, no, everything's fine. The government would tell us and da-da-da-da.
Nope.
They made it to where they don't have to show that shit.
They started covering their tracks way ahead of time.
If it feels like there is a lack of clear thinking at the moment, and when it comes to people's health and well-being, you can't wait, it's unacceptable. That's going to be what we're all going to be dealing with on one spectrum of it all. One spectrum.
It's not even the whole.
And this is all today, in the last day. This is just the last day. Then I already showed you Dr. Drew and what he posted and showing about the myocarditis in young men from 40 and under.
I think.
Like, we are at fucking wartime on the highest level I think we've
That's
ever
a big
even
part of the, that's a big
we've
part of
ever
the
even
war.
comprehended.
That's all a big part of the war.
I know.
Like there's physical war and there's psychological war, there's spiritual war. It's the great war because it's everything.
Especially with the Scorpio eclipses coming up and with the understanding of the Saturn Uranus square with Jupiter there in the middle in Aries. Like if you're not a true warrior of truth, like, and you're not a true warrior for the people and a true warrior for the betterment of this reality and trying to fucking do these crazy experiments on the world, it's going to all fucking come out. Pluto fucking coming direct October 8th, right after this fucking crazy Saturn Uranus square with Jupiter, which will still be in there by Pluto.
It'll still be
direct.
Yeah.
And the eclipse is starting. It is going to be the fucking shattered reality is like weak now. Like this is going to be like shattered fucking consciousness on the unconscious that is going to shard their whole mental facilities. It is going to like level systems of trust of any government institution. It is going to break down the system of society to the highest we've ever seen. And people walking around going, I might die right now at any millisecond.
I think
that got it.
Reality got shattered, but now we're at the place as a collective where we're falling through and we're starting to get the cuts and we're starting to see the blood and see how real that actually was.
Well, Spiritual Daddy, it was a good episode.
It was a good episode.
Please share this. And of course, my Instagram is now being censored and like legitimately. And I don't know with this one next and with wherever. They're actually targeting my shit now for no reason. They're not even showing a post I made. That's
that didn't
crazy.
Show?
No, no, it's just telling people. I'll show people that on Insta, you know. So,
oh my God.
Right? Like, this is what's crazy. Ready? Here we go. Again. This is, oh, did I lose? Yeah, I did. Hold on 1 second.
Technology's been a real pain in the ass.
It's been a pain in the ass lately. But yeah, like I got zero posts to refer to with it, right? None. Okay? So if you go and I put it up on my Instagram, this is what people are sending me when they're trying to do a story of me. The Leo King can't be mentioned because they have repeatedly posted content. So they're just saying I'm a repeated poster.
Right.
They're not actually, most people go like, this is a bad post.
That's for stories, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Right? But my whole thing, they're taking pieces at a time. Last week it was my live. Now it's stories. Nobody can mention me. Content goes against our community guidelines on false content about TV and vaccines. I've actually been right. Right?
I know. That's
what's crazy.
That's the fucked up
right?
part.
And then look at this was just Friday or Thursday or Wednesday. Blocked from sharing. Posts from this account have recently been removed for going against our community guidelines. So live video sharing has been temporarily blocked. I am telling you all, they're coming after my fucking, all my shit next. I've warned you all. I've done this for a long fucking time. And I'm telling you.
Thank God you have your own platform.
That's why I made High Vibe. And so I'm preparing as my shattered reality that's not that shattered because I've been prepared is you all are going to be shattered when this just disappears. And when all my social medias disappear because they're on to me. So, I'm just letting you all know, you want to stay in normie land with all the fucking normies that are just going to tell you, and I couldn't even watch the ISAR fucking videos. It was the most boring conference I've ever seen in my life on their fucking shit.
Didn't even cross my mind to look at it.
It was horrible. It just had there was nothing about helping, where are we going, what's happening, just like fucking regurgitated same shit.
Not surprised.
You know, I'm happy Nadia Shah won content creator of fucking YouTube for astrology.
Cool.
I've been friends with her for, a long time, but,
Yeah.
But again, to all these people, if that's the kind of astrology you just want, then have fun.
There it is.
There it is. And we'll see. We're just going to see.
That's where we're at.
We're just going to see. And I'm not going to shut up and I'm not going to because I'm showing data that's actually true. And I fucking predicted all that data. And so it's like, I don't know what to tell you motherfuckers. You know what I mean?
It's a badge of honor, really, these days.
Yeah, I'm wearing it as a badge of honor.
So,
that's
where we're at in the collective. You get banned off social media for spitting truth, and you were spitting some fucking cold, hard truth.
Yeah, we'll just see if Google and YouTube just keep it gangster or not. We'll see.
So far, so good.
So appreciate you all. Make sure that you join us on High Vibe. I will be putting up a sale to get on the High Vibe here in the next day or so for the Labor Day weekend. So it'll be a temporary sale, but it'll be like 20% off for all memberships, all paid videos, and all things on the school. So definitely look out for that. Follow me on my Telegram. That's the guarantee right now of a place where I can go live and put videos up and talk to you and do all those kind of things in a much more like quick fashion, or links, or go to my link tree on Instagram and do all things through there to find out before that's gone. But you can look up from my link tree, the Leo King link tree on Google for links. But I appreciate you all. I hope that you all took this message in well. It was great. Brian, you gave a lot of great info, and
right back at you.
Definitely don't take a microdose psychedelic if you're with a fucking crazy doctor who gave a jab or even follows that narrative. I hope, Timothy Leary is rolling around right now being like, fucking don't let them do that. I appreciate you all. And I recommend people right now to stay in Virgo season, to stay out of that place anyway right now. Fucking really deal with shit and open up your heart naturally. And don't be so afraid of love that you don't need assistance through fucking these things to do that.
100%.
All right, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. See you on High Vibe. Adios. Adios. Bye-bye.